Hey, what's up, guys? This is Sewell here. Today's gonna be a different setup for our series here on photography, how I started to learn photography, how I got into it, and basically who my teacher was. Hopefully you guys like this. Hopefully you enjoy it. Give it a thumbs up. If there's any questions or comments, leave it below. Let's get right into it. So today we're just taking a different approach to my normal YouTube videos where I'm just sitting here talking to you guys. I'm diving more in depth into my world and the things that I use and the mindset that I have when it comes to photography, and really looking at what photography is from my perspective and how you can use the skills that I have gleaned over the last 11 years to your advantage. And this is a bit of a series that is a 4-part series, and it's connected to my process of how I started to learn through it, my teacher, Ryan Johnson. I'm going to be showing his work and my work. I'm going to put some annotations on the bottom of each picture so you know whose work is who, and you can kind of get an idea of what's going on. So real quick, without any further ado, Ryan Johnson. I met him, interestingly, online in 2005, if I'm not mistaken. And he began to show me his pictures, his work. He began to tell me what he was doing. And I was blown away. I don't even think I had my first Mac yet. I was still trying to get a Mac computer because I felt like at the time Apple was more stable. I used to build computers back in the day, and I didn't want to spend time working on the computer. I just wanted to use the computer for my work. So that's why I went with Apple. Anyway, so he began to teach me a lot of things, and we're not going to go too much in depth into what he taught me in this first episode, but we're going to talk about that stuff in the next upcoming episodes. But today we're going to talk about defining photography in today's world, in the 21st century. What is photography? And photography itself, by its technical definition, is painting with light, meaning you're taking the brush, which is your camera, or it could actually be a lens. And I guess, you're taking your brush and you're painting an image by capturing light and using light to create the image that you want, whether it's a darker shot, whether it's really bright and overexposed for whatever process you're trying to do. Maybe you're trying to make the person look really ghostly. But photography is known as that. And in the 21st century, things look a lot different because now we have cameras everywhere, and everyone is a photographer in a sense. And technically anyone can be a photographer because it doesn't mean that you are good at what you do. It just means that you're able to capture images, and with enough practice you can get better and better. So just like anybody can be a singer, we have good singers, you have bad singers. Anyway, so as we define it, the first thing I want to mention here is it takes a camera and a photographer to capture or create photographs, as we already know. So I say that to say you can be using a cell phone, you can be using a pinhole camera, you can be using a camera from 1980, you can be using any type of camera you want to use to capture your image. That's important in a world where we're talking about the X-T3s, we're talking about the X-T30, we're talking about the A7 III, we're talking about Canon's new full frame mirrorless camera. There's so many cameras to choose from, and people always ask the question, what is the best camera to buy? For me, the criteria for that question is based on what you can afford, what is current. I only give them the most current camera because it means that they won't have to upgrade in the coming years. And if they're really dedicated, they may have to hold on to that camera for 5, even 10 years. If that person wants to really hone their skills and build a system around the camera, they can hold on to that camera for a long time. So that's my criteria. What's the latest camera? Can you afford it? And what it is you're actually photographing. It's not just based on, okay, this camera creates amazing images. Now, what I may look at personally for my needs as a photographer is, okay, can this camera keep up with my style of photography, street photography, just shooting random shots in a church or at a local venue or anywhere? I tend to want a lot of quick autofocus. Now, I can also teach myself or practice more on manual focus, because I use manual focus pretty much when I'm doing video. So it's just a matter of switching that now to photography. So there are different ways to capture images, and no one camera has all of the advantages. So anyone who tells you this camera is the best, it's usually based on a certain criteria and based on their opinion. Now, in terms of professional versus enthusiasts, this is the 21st century. Again, we're comparing those who are being paid for the service, who actually invest hopefully some type of learning or education or some type of years of experience, and they want to get paid for photographing people. That, in my opinion, is a professional. It doesn't necessarily mean that anyone who charges for a photo is a professional. No, it means that if you are taking this seriously, and particularly if this is your only or your main source of income, then you're in line with being professional, and you present yourself as a professional, and you actually have a system in place to capture images for clients and in different situations. Now, in today's day and age, everyone seems to be a professional because the cameras have become so easy to use, and the computers in these cameras are so sophisticated that the average person can just point and shoot with very minimal effort. And especially with cell phones now having these computational photography skills where you can actually choose which item will be in focus and which parts of the image will be out of focus. Everyone seems to now have a handle on what professionals only knew how to do. And so I guess the question now is, will this affect us in the coming years? Will photographers have a harder time convincing people to pay them $2,000 for a 4-hour session because my camera's more expensive, because my pictures are sharper, because my pictures are larger? It's not simply that, in my opinion. But I do believe things will get a little more challenging, because people will begin to think that they have what it takes to get the same results. The automation of photography with phones and smarter cameras, it doesn't change the fact that there are some underlying principles, and that's kind of where I want to outline in this 4-part series. So when I met my teacher, Ryan Johnson, he began to show me a lot of old films. So he began to throw out a lot of old films to me, like Strangers on a Train. Now, he was teaching me from the perspective of a filmmaker. He said, you're interested in filming, you're interested in getting a camera, you're interested in doing videos and possibly movies. You need to watch certain things. And again, we see a lot of that happening now on Instagram. People go on Instagram and they look at other people's work, and they say, hey, I like that work. I want to know what camera he's using. I want to know what lens he's using. I want to know where he's shooting this. And I want to mimic some of his process. And I think that's a good starting point to understand what a person is not necessarily using, but their why. If we look at Hitchcock, he's doing a lot of visual storytelling. Alfred Hitchcock, when he did the movie Strangers on a Train, he's doing a lot of visual storytelling. He's not just telling the story from through the script. He's also doing it through the camera. And so that began to give me ideas when I was taking pictures. Can my pictures, I'm talking about motion pictures, can my pictures tell stories? They can. Can my still pictures also tell stories? And that was really important. And so looking at someone their work that you appreciate, and sort of mirroring some of their techniques helps you get started, because now you have a reference point. Some are able to do it through their own life experiences. Some are a bit reserved, and so they may need a bit of a push by looking at someone who is already on a particular level in terms of that craft. And so when I looked at a lot of these films he told me about, which we're going to cover in the next episode, I began to say to myself, hey, this is pretty good. And I understand what's happening here. I understand now that I need to keep it simple and yet effective. Sometimes we throw too much at a particular craft, whether it be music, whether it be in this particular case photography, and we think by doing all these things we're gaining the appreciation of our audience. No, you're actually turning them away. For instance, taking a picture with multiple filters, taking a picture with multiple effects, not just filters, but also maybe lens flares, maybe grunge effects, maybe all these different plugins and tools that are at our disposal today, throwing it at the picture and saying, hey, people are going to love this. You are going to get a lot of people who are going to like it, because I feel like in this generation, in the era that we live in, people are just consuming. Sometimes trash, unfortunately to say, and sometimes just for the sake of, hey, there's something new out there, I'm going to consume it. But if you find a particular style and you strip it down to its fundamental things, you'll see that there are some principles that are involved, such as lighting, such as angles, and above all, storytelling, meaning the image piques your mind, it piques your interest, it gets you engaged, even though it's not saying anything verbally, even though it's not calling your attention in some boisterous way. It may be a very simple image, but it causes you to think. And I feel like that's so important today. I feel like that is one of the main key elements we need to focus on in this series is, hey, what I learned from Ryan Johnson, the first part of this series here, is the fact that, listen, we need to stop, observe from those who have gone before, who are excellent in what they do, take what it is we need to learn from them, and then apply that to our own craft and keep it simple. And little by little, you keep building on that. Not keeping it simple to the point where it's ordinary, but keeping it simple to the point where you have it down to a science, how you're going to capture your images, how you're going to deliver them, how they're going to be received, because you know you're telling a particular story. And as you continue with this process, you just keep refining it. You just keep improving it. You just keep augmenting what's already been done. And that's just my opinion here in this 21st century. We have all these technologies at our disposal, but the fundamental things are still important and they should not be ignored. Use your Instagram filters, use lighting, use camera angles, use that smartphone you have, but remember those principal fundamental things. And the main one is telling your story. So I hope this first episode here of defining photography in today's world, in the 21st century, or 21st century photography, I hope that this made some sense. I hope that you guys can glean from this. I hope that the pictures I've put up here can give you guys a sense of where I came from and where I'm actually looking to go with my work. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. And until next time, this is Seawall here. Peace.